Okay, this video is the second part of lesson 6.02. We were in the midst of the reading. We left off here at John Brown at Harper's Ferry, so that's where we'll start now. Tensions over slavery were heightened in 1859 by a dramatic act of violence led by John Brown, who had killed 5 pro-slavery men in Kansas just a few years before. That's what we had read about in the previous lesson. From Kansas, Brown had taken his family east and hatched a more ambitious scheme. He secured financial backing from several wealthy abolitionists and planned to seize the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry. And if you see in the side note there, it says an arsenal is a place where weapons and ammunition are stored. Okay, so plan to seize the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, now part of West Virginia. From there, he and his followers planned to march south, freeing slaves from their plantations and building a liberation army that would sweep through the heart of Dixie. On the evening of October 16, 1859, Brown and his force of 21 men, 5 blacks and 16 whites, held a short prayer service and started, there's a picture, turn the page, and started for Harper's Ferry. Everything went wrong. When local residents caught wind of Brown's plan, they mobilized their militia and surrounded Brown's small unit. The abolitionists killed a few townspeople, including 1 free black man, but were apprehended several days later by a company of U.S. Marines commanded by Colonel Robert E. Lee, a veteran of the Mexican-American War and a Virginia slaveholder. It took less than 6 weeks for John Brown to be tried, convicted, and hanged. But those 6 weeks raised sectional tensions to a new and dangerous pitch. Though most Republicans denounced Brown as a radical extremist, many abolitionists celebrated him as a hero. On the other hand, many Southerners suspected that Brown's raid was part of a Northern conspiracy against the peace and security of all the Southern states, in the words of a report of the Virginia legislature. Brown encouraged the notion of himself as a martyr. "Let them hang me," he wrote to his brother. I am worth inconceivably more to hang than for any other purpose." On December 2nd, as he was marched to the gallows, Brown handed a folded slip of paper to one of the guards. It read, "I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty lamb will never be purged away, but with blood." And I believe we stop here at the election of 1860. That will be the next lesson. So let's go back to our homepage, and we should have completed the reading guide as you were going through or following along with the lesson answer key. Now we're going to complete the On Track to War activity, which is right here. Let's find out what we have to do here. Understanding the path leading to the war between the states requires putting key events into sequence. The timeline that follows should help. There's one problem, however: pieces are missing. Fill in the blanks to complete the chronology. Okay, what of 1850? Let's open our word bank. Okay, let's close it for a second. Picture of Henry Clay. So we have 1850. Territorial governments for New Mexico and New Mexico and Utah. California admission as a free state, passage of the Fugitive What Act, and abolition of the slave trade in Washington, D.C. So let's open our word bank. And no, we don't drag the words. Okay, so do you think this is compromise? I kind of think this is talking about the Compromise of 1850. So I think that's the first word we have to put in. And passage of the Fugitive What Act? What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Shall we try slave? Oop, not salve. Slave. Close word bank. Next. Okay, Harriet Beecher Stowe begins publishing a series of installments from her book. What's the name of her book? The complete book condemning slavery is published in 1852. I think it is Uncle Tom's Cabin. And as you can see, there isn't lots of times with these online activities, you'll see a check to check your answers. Well, there is no check here, so we're just relying that they are right. And I can tell you they are. So continuing next. Okay, the next one, 1852. The Whigs nominate General Winfield Scott for the presidency after discarding incumbent Millard Fillmore. Scott loses overwhelmingly to Franklin Pierce, a Northern who supports slavery. He is a Northern Democrat who supports slavery. Next. Okay, 1854. Oops, where did it go? Online activity, come back. 1854. Stephen Douglas proposes a bill to spur railroad development and open farmland in Kansas and what to settlement? Nebraska. The what Nebraska Act is passed? It is Kansas-Nebraska Act. It provides that what sovereignty will be used to make decisions about slavery. This effectively ends the what compromise? What's that word? That means part of its sovereignty. And what's the other word we put in front of it? That means the states can decide what they want to do, if they want to be free or slave. It is indeed popular. Popular sovereignty. And this effectively ends the Missouri Compromise that was passed back in 1820. And did I spell Missouri right? It doesn't look right, but I think I did. Next. Violence surrounding the issues of slavery breaks out. A newspaper coins the phrase, what Kansas to describe it? Do you remember from the last lesson? It was bleeding. Yes, bleeding Kansas. And Pickles the cat wants to help too. Okay, Pickles, what's next? Preston Wilkes of South Carolina violently attacks Charles Sumner of Massachusetts, a fierce opponent of slavery on the floor of the U.S. What is the word? Senate. It is Senate. The What Party is born and calls for a ban on what in the Western Territories? The party nominates John C. Who loses the election to Democrat James Buchanan. And it is going to be the Republican Party is born and calls for a ban on what in the Western Territories? Slavery and Fremont. Ouch, Pickles, don't bite. 1857, the what court hands down the what decision ruling that a government cannot restrict slavery in the territories? The court says that to do so would violate the property rights of American citizens. It rules that slaves and even free blacks are not citizens and cannot bring suit. And that would be the Supreme Court. And that what decision? What was that decision called? The Dred Scott decision. The Illinois Senate race features a series of debates that results in the emergence of who as a national figure. He is opposed to slavery and loses his election to the incumbent Stephen Douglas. And that man would be, from the word bank, dun, da, 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 Abraham Lincoln. So I'm just going to type in Lincoln because it's shorter. Next. Abolitionist John Who tries to incite a rebellion against slavery by attacking the federal armory at Harper's Ferry. He is caught and hanged, but becomes a martyr for his cause. And that is indeed John Brown. Pickles, quit biting. Abraham Lincoln defeats 3 other candidates to win the presidential election. South Carolina declares that it will what, and other states rapidly follow suit. We haven't really gotten to this part yet. But that word we're looking for is secede, which means to break away. So we will put that in there. And next. And that's the end. We put together a timeline. You can print that out if you wish to refer to for your own. And you will see there's a keyword at the end that you might need to say for the 6.02 checkpoint. And that is the end, ladies and gentlemen, of today's lesson. Don't forget to go to the checkpoint and put in your keyword. And that is done. Oh, I guess it logged me out. Joy. Okay, thanks everyone. And the next one will be 6.03, disunion.